Today is the Sunday of the forefathers, and as you heard in the gospel, the listing of the genealogy of Jesus Christ on the side of Joseph. So in Luke, we hear the genealogy from Mary's side, and in Matthew, we hear it on Joseph's side. Now, the reason this genealogy was stated, and the reason it was being taught, was because the majority of the people that were being preached to and brought into Christianity at that time, a sect of Judaism, were those who were Jews. So this genealogy was an opportunity for Matthew to say, look, there was this prophecy and there was this promise. And if we look at this genealogy, it very clearly brings us to the point of Jesus in fulfillment of this prophecy. So understanding that the Jews were waiting for a Messiah to come, even though they misunderstood who the Messiah was, Matthew took that opportunity to say, look at this man, Jesus, the Christ, the Messiah, and look at from where he came. And if you look at from where he came and what he did, clearly he meets that criteria. But for us as Christians, we have to look at it in a very different way. For the most part, this genealogy doesn't mean anything to us, except for, let's watch the deacon and see if he can pronounce all the names correctly, right? Which every single year, that's kind of the thought process, is these 42 names. But from our perspective, we have to look at it from the opposite side. Christ coming into the world was not merely the fulfillment of a prophecy in linear time in which one event happened and another event happened and another event happened. But if we look from the back end, from Christ being brought into this world, we can see it as the Lord planning and putting forth something into the prophetic writings that he may bring his people to him. You see, the Lord did not look at the world and say, look at what happened to the world. I planted the world with my right hand. I planted this vineyard. Man fell. They've become so far away from what they were supposed to be. Let's send the second person of the Trinity in to fix it. No, he knew from before the creation of the world what was to happen. Because we see it linearly. And we can't comprehend. I can say this over and over and over and over again and teach it. And as much as I may teach it, you're not going to get it. And I'm not going to get it. And the bishop's not going to get it. And no one's going to get it because we see the world as second after second, minute after minute, hour after hour, week, month, year, and so forth. Whereas the Lord, who lives outside of time, who created time for us, sees it all at once. Sees it all at once. And he knew that man would fall. And he knew from before man was created, as Lord, he would come into the world to give us the opportunity for salvation. Now, many ask, why did he wait until so many had come into the world to do it? What about them? They went into darkness, into Sheol, because there was no path to salvation. He knew we weren't ready. He knew that the ground had to be prepared. And after he came into the world, after he descended into Hades, he then preached to them that they may also have that path to salvation. Nobody was left behind. And if you look at the progression of population in the world, the number of people that lived prior to Christ is minuscule, 1 or 2%. And right now, 1 in 7 people, I guess the stat is, that have ever been born are still alive today. That's how much the population has grown and exploded exponentially over time. It's almost crazy to think about those numbers the way they come across, right? So I want us to see this not as a prophecy being filled, but I want to see it as a Lord who knew we were going to fail, who knew we were going to fall. And even then, he still created us. Just like parents today who look at this world and say, gosh, this world is a horrible place. Do I want to have children? Do I want to bring a child into this world? And the answer is always yes. Because bringing a child into the world is an extension of our love. To love one another is to create. And the same thing in the Trinity. To have love was to create, to bring forth. bringing us forth knowing that we would be unfaithful to him, we would be adulterous, that we would not respect him or love him as he deserves. And then he comes into the world as the second person of the Trinity, which is prophesied, and we see today as we see the story of Joseph. And still to come into the world knowing from day one all he would do is work for our salvation, and that we would beat him, torture him, hang him on a cross, and put him to death. And he still came into the world. He gave his whole life for us. And when I say us, I don't mean the collective us. I mean you and you and you and you individually, for each of us. And all he asks for in return, since he gave his life for us, is that we give our life for him. Now that might sound like a lot, but just as only a small percentage of people lived before Christ was born, only a small percentage of our life is going to be in the years we spend here in history. All of it, for the most part, will be spent in eternity. And where do we want that to be? Do we want to justify to the Lord when we are there? Lord, if I knew it was true, if I knew that everything I heard was true, I would have been different. To which he will say, I sent the prophets, I sent my son, I sent the church, I sent the apostles, I created a hierarchy, and you didn't listen to anybody. Our lives need to reflect his life. And no matter what we do, we will never reflect the extreme humility that he went through. As the one who created us to come into the world as a creature, as that creature, to be discarded by his people, to be beaten, put to death, and then to go into Hades in order to defeat the one who sinned first, the great archangel, and then Satan, Lucifer. So today when we hear this, let's not look at it as a historic teaching. Let's not merely look at it as a prophecy, but let us understand for what it is. The Lord preparing for the plan he had already put in motion, that we may together be saved. May the Holy Trinity bless and protect you, and may we all have a wonderful and blessed Nativity of the Lord this upcoming week.